I would like to call the Village of Lannon Village Board meeting to order for Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 7 p.m. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove your headgear.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already done so. Roll call. Lake.
Present.
Calatola Roby.
Here.
Newman. Here. Moore.
Here.
Grenier.
Here.
Summers. Here. Yates is present. Statement of public notice.
Has been posted.
Item 5, discussion and possible action on the reading correction and approval of the minutes from the 12/9/24 Village Board meeting. Did anyone have any comments or corrections to make on the minutes?
I was here, but I was late on my number 3.
Party.
Party, I was tardy for the party.
Dark Star. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes with the one correction.
So we have a motion, and a second to approve the minutes from the 12/9/24 board meeting with the one correction. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, committee reports, finance and personnel.
We will cover under item 13, and I also wanted to notify the board that I will be attending a Zoom meeting that is being held by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities for Innovation Fund Planning Grant Webinar. With the possibility of maybe helping us adding some money into our budget.
Always for that.
Yeah. I'll be on that as well, and I think
I signed
you
up for
are
it as
too,
well.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item B, legislative. C, Parks, Rec, and Beautification.
I wanted to ask President Yates and Brenda to put on the agenda, Liz Ilnicki from the Land and Business Association has given me a complete list of dates of events that she would like to do next year. It's all the normal Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
Halloween.
Jan emailed me too, asking for the car show one too, so we can approve those all at once.
Okay, perfect. And then, The only other thing I wanted to mention is that I was contacted, by Wisconsin Lutheran High School. They're looking to build a new turf baseball field to support their high school baseball teams. They asked if Lannon has any land that we could donate to them. That is not a possibility. However, I thought I would, they do have the money to build the field. They need the land. I thought I would just make a public statement that that is something that we were approached about. So if anybody wants to have a legacy in the community by donating land, that is an opportunity for them. Everybody looks at Jerry.
Across the street, walking show.
So, I believe that is all that I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Colleen. Public safety,
Nothing at this time.
public works, recycling, sewer.
Well, start out, you're probably all aware that we had a water event here a few weeks ago. And caused quite a bit of headache for a few of us. I would like to say that Sarah and Mid-City did very well in trying to attack it. We had a major problem in that we couldn't find the shut-off valve from the main. We're running around with metal detectors and many things looking for it. Finally, when we got a schematic plan from Ben, we found out that we were about 30 feet in the wrong direction. And so when we walked up there, we found the open spot going to the property and found the stop box, so we got that shut off. It was a different situation in that it didn't cut the main, their lateral coming from the main, but they had an interior pipe on the property, and they were digging to do the storage that we talked about some time ago, and once they cut it in half, and 140,000 gallons later, we got it stopped. I don't know, Ben, we need to look at the master plan and get, I came up here looking in the drawings here and couldn't find anything here, so I know everything's digital nowadays, so I think we need something on the wall here somewhere.
Yeah, that's fair. And I just want to add that, the applicant, so the outfit that was doing the digging, asked for all those drawings and I sent them at least a week ahead of
Yeah,
the incident. So it was rather disappointing that there was some disconnect there.
yeah,
Maybe you forgot to tell them to actually look at them.
yeah. And being that it's on private property, it wasn't a locating situation, you know, and that's why we couldn't find the stop box either, nothing was marked. But anyways, okay, we got that. The temporary generator is installed at the pump house. What's the status of the new one?
I need to check. We're still going back and forth with Miller Electric on insurance.
Okay,
But
but is the new one at Mid-City?
I need to check on that also.
Okay.
Their scheduled delivery timeframe was right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Or it would be there in storage,
Yeah,
but I would imagine we're about a month out from seeing, you know, the old one demo.
but now that we got the temporary one there and hooked up, then that worry is right over. And then, I've been talking with Sussex about getting some spare parts for our sewage lift pumps. Because particularly the two here on Main Street are getting to be quite old. And I'm worried about both supply chain issues these days and if there's even replacement parts available now. So they're looking into that, and what I made agreement with them is that we would store them in Sussex. So if there's an emergency and you're looking for them and where are they, they'll be in the Sussex Sewer Department. Let's see, we had to do some warranty work on the new transmission in the plow truck. But that all went well. But that raises the issue that I don't see any reason why we would be having the plow truck. Because back, it occurred when Menominee Falls was doing our work. And they didn't want to deal with the busy work around here because they just didn't have the staff. That's when we got the plow truck. Well, now we've got a plowing company. So I think for next season, we got to look at it and just have them incorporate everything we're doing with a plow truck. So, because the plow truck isn't gonna go much longer, so.
Yeah, and we do, we currently are supposed to be doing the boulevard at Whispering Ridge, which we're going to
Yeah,
look at trying to quit claim
Yeah.
that back to them.
We're doing it
We're not doing Willow anymore. So it's literally just like this parking lot and the
Yeah.
lots at the park, right?
yeah, so. Anyway, so that's work on that this summer. And then, we have item number 11 on the agenda. And, last thing is, we're gonna do some plumbing maintenance work out at the park. We'll do that in the spring, but some of the valves there are pretty well worn out. They're gonna die one of these days, so we'll take care of that when we get warmer weather. That's all I got.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Corey,
No new phone calls this month again.
all right. Item 7, department reports, clerk's office.
They did meter reads on Friday, so we will have utility bills going out this week. The election in April, the spring election for trustees and president, we have 4 people running for the 3 trustee spots. And then just Patrick is running for president. We are currently working on year-end things, audit items, getting ready for that. Dog licenses will be going out shortly, after the utility bills, so.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Police department,
Nothing, nothing new to report on our end. The log was sent to everyone. Well, nothing new as of that.
okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. All right, item number 8, citizens' comments. This is meant for public comments on any subject without any discussion by board of trustee members or action except for possible referral to a governmental body or village agent. I didn't see anybody on the sign-up sheet, but did anybody have any citizen comments tonight? No? Okay. Thank you all for coming anyway. Item number 9, discussion of possible action regarding the annual adjustment to the reserve capacity assessment water connection fee. So I'll let Ben go into the details here, but if you'll all recall, the RCA has an annual adjustment based on an index. Every year it gets adjusted. So Ben, do you want to give us the short story on this?
Yep, the short story is we switched from impact fees to reserve capacity assessment fees in 2022 to help so that everyone that connects to the system is paying a uniform fee, and that includes developers. The adjustment from year to year is based on the construction cost index, which is published by Engineer News Record. And so the adjustment from January of 24 to January this year is only 1.6%. So that's positive. So last year the fee was $8,528. This year that would come out to $8,665 per equivalent meter connection. And as a reminder, equivalent meter connections, the base meter size is a 3/4 inch meter and smaller. It's counted as 1 equivalent meter connection. And then it goes up from there, and it's based on how much flow that the physical meter has capacity to convey. So it's not linear. For example, a 2-inch meter is 12 equivalent meter connections. A 2-inch meter can let about 12 times as much water go through as the base meter. At any rate, on this sheet that's included in your packet for reference is just from the resolution in 22 when the board adopted this, and this is just simply following that prescribed method. So appropriate action would be to adopt the 2025 RCA fee as presented in the amount of $8,665. Happy to answer any questions.
Ben, how many people do we still have left to connect?
So that's a bit of a loaded question. So the RCA fee is based on the full build out of the village. So that includes if the land north of Overstone were ever to develop, it includes the gross property on the north side of Custer Lane. It includes the Collie Farm property. It includes land in Village Hills. So the basis of this fee, everyone that connected to the water projects in 22, 23 was charged same kind of base unit, and that was set up so that in the future, whether it's land, Village Hills or new development, everyone's paying that fee. This is the fee that like Stonewood Trail condominiums on Main Street will be paying, et cetera.
What about those homes? And there's just really a handful of homes that are on Good Hope Road that we put in the new water line to.
Yep.
They haven't hooked up to the system yet, because we haven't opened that up yet.
Yep.
But will this be what they pay?
This will be their charge. Yep.
Okay,
And there's about 7 properties that are scheduled to connect as part of that project.
Yeah, I believe those.
And I'll have more
those
on those.
lines are pressurized now,
Yeah,
right?
it's live.
It's all live now, so.
Correct. I'll have more comments on those specific properties in my engineer report.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Anyone
I'll
care to
make,
make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the RCA fee for 2025 at $8,665.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to approve the presented amount for the RCA fee. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10, discussion and possible action on approval of operator's license application for McDugout. And I
There was one in your
believe we also
packet.
had a late
Yeah,
addition.
there's one on the desk that came in this afternoon. The police department did run background on it. It was okay, so.
So they're literally both named Zachary.
Yeah, right?
What are the odds of that?
Yeah,
With the same
and last name
initial.
starts with an H on both of them.
Yeah.
Seems a little funny.
so the one who came in today, Brenda, is the Han, HANN.
Yeah.
Or Hun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is not.
Is it- Han, HANN or HUNN? Do you remember, Lieutenant?
HAN.
HA.
Yeah.
Has anybody had, Lieutenant, has anybody had a chance to review that application?
I did when I came in, sorry, I didn't sign it or anything. If I did.
Is it okay?
It is good to go.
All right, well, I would make a motion that we accept the applications for the license to serve fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors for Zachary Hibble and Zachary Hahn, as recommended by our police lieutenant.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the operator's licenses for the 2 applications for McDugout. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, discussion and possible action on approval of final pay request for the Good Hope Road Water Main Extension Project.
I would make a comment that if you're used to looking at these kind of things, you'll see that we didn't keep any retention. We walked the project the day it was completed, and the contractor did attempt to do all the work, including the landscape repair and all. So we decided that although there's normally you would keep a retention with a project over the winter like this, we do have a 1-year warranty for them. And we looked at them every day and they did a pretty nice job. So we decided that we would go with the warranty and not keep any retention.
If I may add in that, a reminder that according to USDA, all the money has to be spent and reimbursed by April 30th. And there was just a thought by April 30th, we might not know the condition of of the landscape anyways. So
Right.
it made more sense to handle it this way.
No, they did an outstanding job, though, I thought.
Oh, very good.
You'll also note here that the net total change order amount was a deduct of $54,535.63. That has to do with the fact that this was a unit price contract. And there were several line items where the quantities were less than what was shown on the plan. Much to everyone's surprise, the biggest one of those was rock removal. There's less rock removal. Also, if you're taking a real fine look, there's a couple of categories that went over that are listed on this cover sheet as change order 1 was for an extra storm sewer pipe repair that once they dug it up, there was something they were supposed to bypass, but they noticed that item was damaged, so village authorized repairing that. And then there were just a couple things such as a little more asphalt patching than expected per plan that were authorized. So in total, what's great about the overall project, I think we're set to de-obligate. Then this $54,000 gets de-obligated and USDA can reallocate that to another project.
Should make them happy with Lennon.
Right? I hope so.
So they came in $200,000 below all the other bidders, got it done on time and under their lower budget.
Correct.
It's a win.
Yep.
And we did receive the final lien waivers from
Oh, okay.
the contractor as well. So our recommendation is to authorize final payment in the amount of $250,656.35.
So moved.
We have a-
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve contractor's pay application number 1 for $250,656.35, but we have some comments.
The performance warrants what the board is contemplating. I recommend that somehow in the transfer final payment that we get confirmation of who the contact person would be or any follow-up work as we notice any issues. And I think it might be a good relationship to try to foster for future work.
They're already interested in extending Good Hope Road. They did a little more rock removal at the end of the main, so the next contractor will be easier to hook up.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second as stated. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, discussion and possible action on approval of ordinance amendment for building code updates. If you'll recall, we spoke about this at a previous board meeting. Building inspector, Mr. Lawner, and village council have been conferring about said amendments to the ordinances, which are in your packet. Hector, did you want to go over any of those specifics?
Just a general reminder, the village some years ago adopted portions of the state administrative code which give the village the authority to enforce certain state building code provisions. And in addition, there previously was an adoption of a request to have the delegation of plan review for commercial and larger projects delegated to the village. However, because we have so few such projects and most of our construction has been in the residential arena, it was felt that it would be more productive to require developers to go to the state to get approval. The rationale for having local delegation was basically, when it was first adopted by the state, was to expedite plan review because the Madison office was not in a position to expedite those approvals. Our building inspector, who is here tonight, presented this matter to you as a board, and for that reason, I'm assuming that there was no legislative meeting convened because you basically have heard the purpose of the amendment, and I made an attempt to send out to you well in advance of the meeting the proposed changes. So at this point, I would defer to the building inspector if he has any comments to make. And I would be happy if, after he finishes, to answer any other questions. Paul?
Sorry about that.
You're working on Jim's
I had to park in the snow, yeah. So yeah, as Hector said, we're looking to drop the delegation for commercial plan review and commercial inspection as such, even though I still hold my commercial credential. I can help out the state inspector as needed, as we discussed at the last meeting. That's just one part of the code changes here. Another part was we have to adopt the uniform dwelling code 320-325, which houses our new home construction, all the codes for that. In addition to that, per state of Wisconsin, we have to adopt 327, which is a campground ordinance for the state. We don't have any properties that fall under this at this time, but they're still requiring that we adopt it. I was just down in Genesee, we had to do the same thing down there. To be honest with you, I haven't read 327. I don't know what the credentials are for 327. If we start talking about getting campgrounds, we'll get the certification for it if needed. So that part of it, that's just housekeeping to make sure we can maintain our 1 and 2 family dwelling delegation. And then the other one is the adoption of 316, which is the electrical code. The code that we had adopted also had the licensing requirements that the municipalities used to be able to do. Years ago, the state of Wisconsin said we couldn't do that anymore. If the state's licensing them, there's no reason for the municipality to license them. We took that out. Somehow that got missed in the previous cycle. So that's the other thing here is we're going to adopt the 316 in its entirety. It doesn't change anything other than the fact that we are just falling into line of what the National Electrical Code and the state of Wisconsin Electrical Code is for that. And we'll have full delegation for 1 and 2 family dwellings, campgrounds, electrical, plumbing, all of that. We will be fully compliant at that time.
Does anyone have any questions? Couple of comments. If you look on your page 2, line 40 and 41, even though the new administrative code, basically with regards to all these provisions, is in place, we always had language that read the following chapters of the Wisconsin Administrative Code, as well as all subsequent revisions, are adopted by the village. So our ordinances have not been out of compliance, but as a matter of public information and convenience, we've updated the provisions because they've been renamed and renumbered somewhat. And for your general information, I have added in line on page 3, in line 78 through 90, just a repeat of the existing code, which is not being changed, which reflects what the penalties are for violations, and each day that a violation continues is deemed to be a separate violation. And finally, lines 91 through 98, just a reminder for everyone that the building inspector does have authority to issue a stop work order. And in the event of a violation, we can take action by not only going to municipal court, but circuit court for an injunction if need be.
Thank you.
Paul, would you then issue a stop work order on commercial work too? Being the village building inspector? I don't know.
For plumbing and electrical portions of that, I would, we would work with the state inspector on the issuance of the stop work order for, if it's a code violation where they're not following the state code or they don't have their state. But if it's a stop work order because they didn't get their permits through us and went to the state, got their stuff, but didn't get their permits through us, we would still have the ability to issue that stop work order from our standpoint, yes.
Yeah. Cause that's normally you're around and they're not.
Correct, yeah, we don't see them too often. If they're by code, they only have to show up once or twice for the inspections.
And you're in concurrence with this current draft that's been presented?
So I actually got lucky, the day I got it from Hector, I contacted state of Wisconsin and shipped it. So the lady who kind of started the ball on us being out of compliance, she was actually in office and able to read it. Hector and I were able to communicate, there was one minor change that we had to make to fall into full compliance, so. Yes, I concur with it. State of Wisconsin, according to what they have seen, said that everything should be good to go and we should be able to do our full adoptions quickly.
Great, thank you.
And I will provide a clean copy for our clerk's office.
Can I
How-
ask,
how-
under the permit required, this is strictly for new construction, correct?
Any house built after 1980 falls under the state UDC code.
Okay,
And then I
so,
believe we have the uniform building code adopted to address the homes prior to 1980.
so older homes that need to have a furnace put in or
All
replace
require
their-
permits.
that it does require.
Yes.
It,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not gonna require that.
I think it was pretty clear under, line item 10.
Mhm.
You can't do anything without the permits in place.
Yeah.
I believe it was under 10.
Yeah.
So water heaters.
Yep.
What else did I see here?
There are some
Dishwashers,
exceptions.
garbage disposals.
Yes, there are some exemptions. I think the re-roofing, re-siding and windows were not required under 32 to 35. Numbers 32 to 35, we're exempting those, so we do. And most of my municipalities do not require those permits. Roofing, siding, new windows. I have one that does, but they require a permit for absolutely everything.
So if you have to have any repair done to your heating, your home heating, your home air conditioning, any of that, you need a permit.
Replacement units, stuff like that, if you're replacing a capacitor on your air conditioner.
Right.
You know, the heat exchanger inside the furnace, if you're doing
Maintenance.
minor repair / maintenance, no.
Okay,
Replace the unit, yes.
that's what I kind of thought that, but I wanted to have it clarified.
No problem.
Thank you.
Brenda, I know that, we were holding a bunch of legislative changes for a while there, a couple of years to spend the money to get everything codified, which I believe has since been done.
It should all be updated online.
Right. So how often do we do that?
It depends how many changes you have.
When we have a need.
You know, I think we've had one or two since then, maybe,
Yeah.
so it's like, do you wait till you have like 5 or 6, or do you do it every year?
Is it a flat?
It's a
I think it was
cost thing.
$6,500, I think, the last time.
Yes,
Is
it
it?
was, yes, so it depends on, usually I'll send the stuff over to them, they'll let me know how much it would be if we did it, we didn't need to. So,
This is kind of a major one.
It's one that I could see causing headaches for the building inspector for sure, if it's not
Well, that's not
updated
so bad.
online.
Yeah. cheers.
Yeah,
He gets paid.
he still gets the old permit form, so.
Yeah. Don't bring that up. Not the time or the place.
Okay, any other questions for council or the inspector?
I guess the only thing I see is that, like, my questions to you, people that aren't aware of some of this. You know, and so if their dishwasher dies, they just replace it. Not realizing that they need to have a permit to replace it. Same thing with an air conditioner. You know, if they have to have it replaced for whatever reason, maybe it's age or, you know, no longer can get Freon or whatever. They're not aware that they have to have a permit for this.
Yeah, but
Your contract.
The
contractors,
contractors, and
They
contractors.
should.
They're very well versed.
Landon's a little more, I don't know how to phrase this, so it's a little more blue collar. We have a lot more people in Landon that are willing to do their own work.
Yeah.
On their house and stuff like that. You know, dishwashers, water heaters are pretty simple. A lot of people aren't gonna attack a furnace or air conditioner, especially having to deal with the freon and gas connections, stuff like that. So, you know, the furnace air conditioners, we're gonna typically see those permits coming through. The water heater and stuff getting replaced, well, it does require a permit. I mean, it's it's not the toughest thing to do. But it does require a permit, but a lot of homeowners will attack it on their own. If we get into a job site and see something, we'll point out. We've had complaints when I've done this 25 years. We're walking through a house in Bayside quite a few years ago, and they're complaining about headaches and stuff. When we're in the basement and they got the water heater vent running about 75 feet. Kind of doing one of these things, and it's up out there. We're like, well, yeah, you're probably dealing with carbon monoxide, you know.
Right.
You need to get somebody in here and get this type of stuff fixed. So if we see it, we'll point it out. You know, I'm never gonna catch everything. It's just not possible. I'm never gonna tell you that I do a full inspection on a brand new house, that house is 100% code compliant. Something could have been hidden or changed after I was there. Any number of things could have affected what got missed there. I do the best I can, see as much as I can. But yeah, we're not running through the village with binoculars and peeking in people's basement windows to see if they put a new water heater in overnight. We're not doing that.
I guess what I have in mind is like people might have a friend that's a plumber that, you know,
Sure.
will do that. And
Yep.
then now you don't have that friend is not applying for a permit and not
Sure.
aware that it has to be. Do you know what
Well,
I'm
if he
saying?
is a plumber, he knows that. If he's licensed at all the licensing requirements, if you're licensed through state of Wisconsin, they talk about that at every one of our code updates. Permits are required, check with the municipality, blah, blah, blah. And I go through a lot of the same code updates as the contractors go through, so. If it's somebody who's a licensed contractor, they know. Now, whether or not the homeowner's telling them not to pull permits, or they told the homeowner, yeah, you don't need a permit, and lie to them or mislead them in some way, shape or form, you know, and then they can't catch everybody.
Correct.
Anything else? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, I guess, that we adopt, and approve ordinance number 2025-1 as presented in its draft form by, council and by, in conjunction with, Paul, the inspector.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hector, do you need anything else specified, or is that adequate?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Paul. Item number 13, discussion and possible action on payment of the bills.
I make a motion that we pay the bills as presented by Brenda earlier, the
Second,
village clerk.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financials as presented by the, recommended by the finance committee. Yeah, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, long-awaited engineers report.
Yeah, I've just got a few things I would like to discuss. One, obviously, the elementary school is going through some upgrades. You might have seen that some of the utility companies are out there marking. I'm not sure on when they're starting, but in light of the tragedy that happened in the district, we reached out and asked just for like an overview of the part of their, the traffic flow over here. Just in case anyone asks or has questions about that. So reached out to them on Thursday last week, and they indicated they would put a figure together if anyone wants to see that. I haven't gotten it yet, but expect that to be coming. Kind of another thing that's been hanging out there, there's some question about drainage complaint between Filtration Concepts and Overstone. Reached at Patrick's request, reached back out to Filtration Concepts recently. It sounds like they've engaged someone to try to do some of the work. It might not be known if it was affected until the spring, but at least something has been done for now. I still intend to get over there and just kind of put my own eyes on it and see if it appears reasonable or not, before we get wet weather again. Lastly, private services. So the Waukesha County Community Foundation's, Quarry Grant Fund. There's money left over from the budget that was allocated for helping with the private property costs associated with connecting to the water main, the lateral, the interior plumbing, the well abandonment. Not unlike the rest of the project, that portion of it also tracked under budget, and there's a decent amount of money left over there. And we had assumed that we could go ahead and use that money to help with the private side connection cost for folks that just got water main on Good Hope Road. The quarries actually interjected and said, whoa, time out, we need to make sure that that use of funds aligns with the PUD documents and conditional use permits that were all put into place a few years ago that set up that quarry grant fund in the first place. So the village has asked for kind of a summary opinion, if you will, from Attorney Macy, who helped put those quarry documents into place and put the agreement between the village and the community foundation in place in the first place. And then the quarries are also very interested to know that the village of Lannon has a plan for installing the rest of the public water mains that will be needed in the village. And as much as we told them like, hey, this RCA fee is that policy has been adopted by the board. It encompasses a plan to pay for the public water mains in the rest of the village. In my pessimistic or opinion or whatever, our word wasn't good enough for them. So Baker Tilly, the village's accountant, has put together a kind of a summary letter also. And then Patrick and I will be meeting with the quarries at some point here to come to an understanding of how those leftover monies in the community foundation's quarry fund can be used. It's long been the intent to continue to use it in the same manner as it has been. And that's, as the water system expands, continue to use that to help with the private side of the connection costs with that. So I just wanted to give everyone an update that that's kind of what's going on, and that's what's caused the current I guess connections, the ones that are stalled out, so to speak. It's kind of caused a hang up that we hope to work through here at some point. And I forget, one of the quarry operators might be out for several weeks here, and that might not be able to have that meeting for a little bit. But technically, with the folks that have water main now available to them on Good Hope Road, it's 6 months to connect from the time the water service is made available. On the previous project, the main project, that time period was kicked off by the village sending an official notice in the mail to each of the property owners. So we have not sent out that notice yet, because we feel obligated to give them some confident direction on whether or not this money will be available for them to help with their costs or not. So that's kind of where we sit.
And what does that help look like? Let's say that the quarry fund is, verified to be eligible. What kind of relief would those people have? Because they wouldn't have the other grants that we all had, right?
Yeah, so. The initial proposal is to keep the level of assistance comparable to what everyone else got in the main project. So I think in the main project, the max available was $12,050 per property if you did the full scope of a new private service lateral, the plumbing conversion in the basement, and the well abandonment. And so what we did is we kind of scaled that up for inflation or whatever from 2 years ago to now. And it was on the order, I forget the number exactly, but on the order of $13,000 per property. Now there's a couple things to keep in mind. There's only 7 properties over here. A lot of them are businesses, and last go around businesses, it was like up to this amount, their expenses might go more if they're running their pipe through a parking lot or something like that. And that's up to them, any costs above and beyond that. That dollar amount of approximately $13,000, it also works out well that for the areas where there's already existing structures that we need to connect all the remaining structures in the village. So that would be the rest of Good Hope Road, portion of Town Line Road. If you went further up Main Street toward Calvary Baptist and picked up a few properties there, and all of Land and Village Hills, there would roughly be enough money left in that quarry fund to provide that same level of assistance for everybody.
Nice.
That's good.
So that's where it's just kind of a logical use of money to us. Corey's kind of initially were like, yep, that sounds good, and kind of at the last minute said, wait, hold on. We want to make sure that before we get on board with that use of the money, that we're confident that the village has funding in place for the public water mains. I frankly don't agree with their position, but I understand it and I respect it. And that is, if you don't have money to put the water mains in, what does it matter if you have money for the private connection assistance anyways? So I understand. Obviously, the board's been through a lot since putting the TIDs in place and then through the USDA project and the RCAP to kind of do everything within its power to set up funding mechanisms for the remaining water mains, but that's where we just have to sort that out and get on the same page.
Yeah.
Are they insinuating that you would give them money back?
No,
No,
Okay.
no,
that's the other thing. I mean, we've very clearly spelled out how and what our plan is to pay for all of the other water mains in the village and whether it's gonna be TID or RCA fee, whatever. There's also a timing mechanism with this fund because this fund does at some point revert over to the village's control for a well guarantee fund.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So, and I don't know what controls are required for that fund, if that's even an existing fund, if that's a fund that the board has discretionary control over. You know, that might be a whole nother variable.
yeah, and I can tell you all of that, all of those conditional use permits, the talk about setting up a well guarantee fund, just for everyone's kind of background knowledge here. When that language was put in place that, hey, if this money isn't spent within 5 years, basically, some of you may recall that when the quarries inked these agreements with the village, it removed the depth restriction, but they couldn't go deeper for 5 years. That was to give Lannon enough time to get the water system in place and get them out of the well guarantee because the water system would be there for those properties. And then there was language that the money unspent would go back to the village and be held in a well guarantee fund. From that perspective of nearly 5 years ago now, their thought was, if this whole thing falls apart and there's no water system in place, at the end of the day, they just care that they're released from the well guarantee. And the thought process behind that was, instead of the quarries holding the well guarantee, that, hey, they put up all this money, now the village will hold the well guarantee. What we did in those agreements was we highlighted parcel by parcel which properties were subject to this guarantee. All of those parcels, and then some, being the additional ones here on Good Hope Road, have water main available. And there's money left over. That situation was never contemplated. This whole mechanism that was in place was assuming that the village would run out of money, wouldn't be able to get all the water main in, wouldn't be able to help all the properties connect. That the village would assume some responsibility. Well, all of those properties have been resolved basically from what we feel the quarry should be concerned about. And we're in this positive situation where there's additional funds left over to help other people. So all we're at odds about is quarries think that we should spend the money putting more public water mains in the ground. And I should say Patrick and I, the village, are of the position that, hey, there's a few different options for how to pay for that, but there's never gonna be an option for how to help people with their private expenses on their private property. And we've kind of laid out to them like, okay, either this money can help every existing structure that has yet to connect, help them at that $13,000 level. Or that amount of money will probably be enough to finish out Good Hope Road and maybe a little more toward the direction of connecting with Sussex at some day. And then quarries, how would you feel then if that water main went in and now there's no money left over to help with the private aspect of that? Then quite frankly, you guys are gonna unfortunately look like the bad guys in that situation. And they understand that. I think in practice, they're okay with how the village wants to use the money to continue for private property expenses. But they want to go back and make sure that however that money gets used, that it's within the terms of the agreement. They've already said if it's not within the terms of the agreement, they're open to amending their agreements with the village. But they don't want the village committing those funds to anything without making sure that it's kosher with the terms of the agreement first.
And to further complicate it, we're not, there seems to be different versions of this agreement floating around, right?
Yeah, I think the version that the quarries were relying on is not a final version. I think that's a big part of the problem. So we provided, Brenda was right on the spot with the signed version of the agreements, and Attorney Macy write a letter kind of summarizing how contingency funds, what the agreement says about how those contingency funds can be used.
So you're fairly confident that you're going to be able to argue your case to the quarries and bring this to relief for private and residents?
I think so.
We have
Oh.
got a couple of calls too from people on Good Hope.
Sure.
Wondering what's going on. But
So ultimately, I'm confident that the funding will be there. I'm not confident as to when.
Right.
Okay, so let's say we have this meeting with the quarries and they say it's ambiguous. Of course, we would probably argue it's ambiguous, so we're just gonna use it this way. They would argue it's ambiguous, so amend the agreements with us and then use it that way. If we have to go through an agreement amendment, quite frankly, it's PUD, which is a zoning thing, and it's conditional use permit, which is a zoning thing, both of which require public hearings. and you're kind of locked into a minimum 2-month process if it's expedited. As you know, from going through with the conditional use permit with Chemrite recently. Where it would start at plan commission, get referred to board to schedule a hearing, to have the hearing. And go back to board and plan commission, so.
So, but in theory, if someone was really chomping at the bit down there to connect. Prior to us settling this,
Yep,
we could offer them to, connect at their own risk or expense. And then we could, if the board was agreeable to it, assuming we come to some sort of agreeable terms with the quarries, then issue them an offset at a later date.
correct, we could.
So the well guarantee, I understand that at some point, the monies, any monies that would be left over would, after the 5 years, revert. You did an excellent job of explaining that, by the way. But there are no more well guarantees because any wells that were retained for, watering lawns and stuff are now excluded from any sort of guarantees, correct?
Yeah, it's a little more nuanced than that. The Land and Stone Products well guarantee remains in effect, and it's a 1 mile radius around their quarry. Okay, so there's some properties like on the east side of the
Marcy
quarry.
Marcy Road.
On Marcy Road.
My house.
Yes,
Yeah.
Moore's house will always stay on the well guarantee, okay? Which is why it was important that when we did these agreements with them, we highlighted parcel by parcel. These properties are getting municipal water, these properties are coming off the well guarantee. That all has been accomplished.
So would Land and Products then be responsible for their well going dry, or was the village at that?
No, Land and Stone
Quarry, it was
Products,
still
Land and
Land and
Stone.
Stone. Okay.
The terms of the agreement with the quarries was always associated to the identified parcels.
Gotcha.
And I
So
think
the
there's-
assumption
there's
is,
6 of us. East
Mhm.
that are covered under that.
Yeah,
So-
Marcy.
Ben and I's assumption was that if they're not in that overlay between being in the well guarantee area for them or outside of it, and we've covered it with water already, that why would they care how we
Right,
spend the rest of the
Right,
money?
I was just trying to assess any responsibility that the village might have after that 5 year period, just in case there was anything out there.
Right.
and quite
Because there are
frankly,
still wells out there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people did pull permits for retention for personal use.
yep, and Lannon's village ordinances now clearly state that for those that elected, just like you were getting at, if you elected to keep your well for outdoor use. That's not subject to any well guarantee,
All right, excellent.
whether the village or the quarry operators, et cetera. And then another thought here. We're technically stretching the dollars farther to accomplish more than what the original agreements intended. One could argue there's more benefit to the quarries there. You could kind of flip that whole thing on its head, so I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
That's just the envelope of the conversation spectrum that we need to have with them. And at the end of the day, I think we'll get there.
Excellent.
It could be a few months yet.
Hector?
When does the 5 year period toll for the quarries?
I believe it's this June.
Okay. It's been a while since I looked at the agreement myself. But if in fact the territory that was intended to be served and benefited has been covered, so to speak, it could be that the village could also look at this and say, well, whatever surplus there may be in that fund, should be or can be used to improve the overall system.
Sure,
And those improvements include a storage tank,
sure.
which has been postponed and whose price tag keeps increasing. So that's another reason for the village needing to have discretion as to what is to be done there.
Yep.
I don't know whether it's necessary to amend the conditional use permit if there is a desire to amend the agreement. But more fundamentally, I don't know that there is a need to amend the agreement. If the purpose of the agreement has been accomplished.
Yep.
To make water available to all those properties, not necessarily to deliver water to the individual home, but to make it available in a main across the street from them or along the street. The purpose of the contract has been met.
Yeah, it might be academic. We might, the timer might hit the end of the, hit the timer, the alarm might go off and it's done with by the time we settle anything with them. And maybe that's just the easiest path, but.
Yeah, we hope to
but-
get there quicker for the sake of these folks on Good Hope Road and to be fair, the folks up at the intersection of Main and Custer.
Yep.
Are kind of stuck in this same.
Yep.
In between uncomfortable spot where they know that there's a connection requirement looming without knowing what level of assistance will be available to them.
But I do want to make one comment that I feel I need to make and when we were going through this whole thing with Trilogy and we were looking at the RCA and, my problem with the old system was always that it was way too complicated for us as a board, for me personally, for Ben. Every time, because we had 3 different impact fee zones and then we had special assessments and it was just very convoluted. So we went to the RCA and then we had all this funding available and the way that we initially were approaching that, I wanted us to modify that so that it was inclusive of every property in the village, so that going forward, everybody could share in that benefit. Not just the people that were under the water expansion project that we were currently doing. It has always been and will always continue to be my position that we should preserve as much of that funding as possible to offset those private plumbing costs for individuals.
Agreed.
So,
Ben, the one question I have is, we talk about Good Hope Road, we talk about Custer and stuff. But what about those homes that are on the east side of Main Street? South of Good Hope Road. We ran the line down for, the condos and all those homes on there on the one side. But I don't know that we ever did it on St. John's Lutheran side. All the way down. And there's a lot of homes along in there, and I think they're still on wells.
All of the ones that are, there's a handful on the St. John's side that are Village of Lannon. And they were, water laterals were extended to them.
yep,
The rest of them are in Menominee Falls.
No, I know that, but I mean, there's a couple of homes in there that, and I go up and down that road all the time on my way to and from, Sussex or wherever I'm going. And there's some homes in there, and one home in particular that I know of, because I've been in that home. I never saw the lateral being put in. It was always on the other side of the road, on my, would be my side,
Yeah.
but not on St. John's side. So you talk about like from Forest Home, there's how many homes down there? I never saw laterals go in there.
It might have been a situation where some of them had laterals that were pre-existing.
1997.
But if you have an address that you wanna give me after the meeting, I'd be happy to look that up and just kind of figure out where they stand.
Yeah, they should all be, if they're in Lannon up there, they should all be connected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then if for some reason we're off and they actually are in Menominee Falls with the Bella Vista thing that happens.
Yeah.
Menominee Falls residents now have access.
Or,
to
or
water.
even some of these other ones that are down there, just past Forest View, and then
Yes.
the next streets. There's several streets back there that are Menominee Falls, they're not.
Right, and I'm not talking behind that.
Probably.
I'm talking right on Main Street,
Mhm.
from Forest View to maybe Sullivan Way.
Yeah.
There's quite a few homes in there along that road.
Mhm.
I'm not
On
talking
Main Street.
behind,
Right,
but they're right on Main Street.
Yep.
That I never saw the line go across.
I know there were a few of them that had laterals
Yeah.
previously, because when Whispering Ridge water system went in. And the village had to connect some water mains, laterals were put in at that time.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly property by property, but I do know that every landed property on both sides of Main Street. Has a lateral or got a lateral.
Okay.
Yep.
And if for some reason somebody got missed, then we certainly wanna.
So I was just
Sort that
thinking
out.
that could be part of the school quarry.
Sure.
And did the line always, after Whispering Ridge, did it run past that to the point where the roundabout is?
Yep, and uptown
Did it go
line,
up that?
Yeah, we ran as part of the USDA project and then,
all the way up town line to the last residence there,
right.
before the quarries and the bug line and all that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cause I was just thinking, huh, those could be a few more people than we're not expecting.
Yeah, right.
It's all done.
Well, and when we did the project in 2006, the state wasn't going to allow us to reopen the road because they were gonna rebuild it for at least 3 years. So we made sure we ran all the laterals in under the road. So they were put in.
I know the house
And that's,
on, what is that, Main Street and those behind St. John's School. Those had laterals put in. So they didn't have to be dug in. Those were already
I'm
there.
not talking behind St. John's, I'm talking right on Main Street.
Yeah, they are on Main Street.
20979 Main Street, which is one in from Fillmore. Had the outside inside sewer lateral program done. By Mid-City. I can search in Tuesday.
So let's not
Fillmore
get,
should be the end, right?
let's not get
I'm
into
not
the
trying to
weeds
do
here.
that,
on
what
this.
I'm trying to think, Sam, is if they are done, we could be looking at more people wanting to tap into
Well, I
that quarry
think
funding.
They're done,
sure.
They're done.
they're done.
They were real picky.
The horses
And
did.
if not, I can just tell you, like, I counted rooftops for how many existing structures do not have access to water that might need to connect to water someday. And I came up with a number in the low 70s or mid 70s, depending on whether or not water ever gets all the way up to Calvary Baptist, right? And in that case, you know, if I'm accounting for 75, but the number's actually 76, it's probably close enough that it could be worked in without having much concern about budget. Especially because some of those, like Calvary Baptist, would probably be one of the last ones to connect, and if one was missed here, it's more immediate, so I think.
Okay, Ben, was that your last item?
I have one more that's very much related. USDA, through a separate program, announced an opportunity for helping with the private property sewer expenses, septic expenses. They just announced a program. Applications are due by the end of March. That would provide up to $15,000 assistance per property to help with like private on-site sewer systems, basically septic systems. So it's on they just announced this right after the new year. It's on my to-do list to call the Wisconsin office and see. We're getting into spots like up there by Custer Main
Yep.
around Town Line where folks would have to connect to both sewer and water. And we kind of have the water side of that figured out, but maybe not the sewer being quite so straightforward. So be aware that there's another avenue that may have opened up here that I'm intending to reach out to.
Excellent.
That's all.
That's all? Okay,
Finally,
Hector?
I don't have a report.
thank you.
Item 16, President's Report. I do have a couple items. One Brenda already covered. We do have 4 candidates for the 3 spots. 2 of the new candidates are here, so thank you, gentlemen, for stepping up and making yourselves available. And I would say that if you care to get together on a weekend to talk about any of the issues prior to the election, I certainly welcome that opportunity, and I'm available. Because one of you, if not both of you, will be on the board soon, so. I would like to thank the police department, gave out $1,250 in gift cards to folks in the community from money that Officer Schweitzer raised for the police lights of Christmas. So that's one of the things that that we do with our motorcycle that helps out the community. So big thanks to them. I have asked that we move the planning commission meeting for this month to Wednesday night, the 29th, rather than the 30th. Brenda, that's official now. If you could let the planning commission members know in the morning, that'd be great. So if you plan on attending that meeting, or if you're here and just hearing about this now, put it on your calendars. The other thing is that in February, the 13th and 14th, Ellers is doing their annual municipal finance seminar out in Baraboo. I have registered for that. I do intend to go for the first day of that seminar. There is a lot of stuff on like municipal bonds. There's some sessions on kids. There's some sessions on financing and arbitrage and things like that. All things that I think are just useful to know. And try to better understand. I don't see anything prohibiting other members of the board here from attending that if they're so inclined. I don't know if do they allow members of the public to attend those? Do you know?
That's a great question.
Because I didn't know if Dan or Jim, if wanted to maybe attend some of those that might be valuable to them as well. I don't know if that's available, but if you want more information on it, I can check and see if public can attend if you have any interest. Other board members, I would say if you have interest, either let myself or Brenda know so that we can get you registered. And we can possibly coordinate a carpool. Like I said, I'm driving out in the morning and coming back that night, so I'm not staying over and doing the second day sessions. Everything I want to hear is on the first day, so. Sorry, Ben, I think you're on the second day, right?
I honestly don't remember which day.
That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
You have a motion
Second.
and a second to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Like that baseball thing, in case you have any ideas on that, there's a comment on there that Ben made.
You know what I was thinking, Colleen?
He looks just-
What I was thinking, maybe if somebody's. My business.